All right, Tim, I'm excited about today because we get to dig into this systematic review that just came out on OT in higher ed. 13 quantitative studies covering everything from Canada to the US, Turkey, Ireland, even Brazil, all looking at occupational therapy interventions for university students. And get this, across the board, OT made a difference in areas like academic performance, well being, stress reduction, and even just day to day engagement.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll admit, when I hear occupational therapy, I still kind of picture, hospitals or like rehab after an injury. Not college campuses, but the results here are pretty impressive. You're saying the evidence goes beyond just feeling a little better? They actually measured stuff, right?
Exactly. So most of these studies used pre and post test designs. Some had just a single session. Others, like that ballroom dancing program in Brazil, ran for 16 whole sessions. But what stands out is that individualized client centered approaches, things like occupational performance coaching or customized group sessions, were consistently more effective than, say, generic wellness programs. That's a theme I've seen again and again. When students focus on their own goals or obstacles, you get real, measurable improvements.
So, not just here's a handout on stress, it's actually sitting with a student figuring out what's tripping you up? How do we make it work for your routines? That checks out with what we talked about previously about satisfaction with daily routines predicting student adjustment. It sounds like this puts some real numbers behind it.
Absolutely. Performance and satisfaction with everyday activities, those outcomes actually shifted statistically significantly in students getting OT. And mental health, too. Levels of stress, depression, and anxiety all went down in the interventions that tracked them. That's not small. The Canadian Occupational Performance Measure, COPM, which is an assessment tool developed by OTs and measures how people perform their daily activities and how satisfied they are with them, shows up in several of the studies. A 2-point change is considered clinically meaningful. All but one of the studies saw changes bigger than that.
That's wild. So, it's not just students with a mental health diagnosis or like a disability who benefit. Some of these were just freshmen getting used to college life or students who self-referred.
Yes, there were studies with all kinds of students, first years, international students, students coming in for general support, and the individualized approach still made a difference. It brings a new layer to traditional academic coaching or counseling that colleges usually offer. Instead of focusing only on grades or mental health symptoms, OT is looking at the whole picture. What are the daily habits and environments that help you succeed? And when you frame it that way, it starts making sense why this has such a big impact on both academic and personal well-being.
It really feels like if you're a campus leader, you got to take notice. All right, so can we get into some of the examples? Like, what did these interventions actually look like in practice?
Definitely. I love this part. There were some very creative and specific programs. One that really stands out is from Brazil. They ran a ballroom dancing intervention for students in health-related fields, 16 sessions, and they measured everything from stress to occupational balance and quality of life. After the program, nearly every metric you can think of moved in the right direction. The WHO QOL, quality of life, scores for physical and psychological well-being shot up, stress levels fell dramatically, and students' balance between work, rest, and leisure improved.
Wait, so a ballroom dancing class run by OTs actually shifted like mental health scores? That's not what you'd expect from a typical student support group. That's brilliant.
Right? And then there are more expected interventions too. And in Turkey, they did a study on students dealing with severe anxiety about their phones, something called nomophobia. Students were split into client-centered OT time management sessions versus a generic time management group. The OT group saw big improvements. Nomophobia went down, but so did the scores for occupational performance and satisfaction. The ones who got individualized OT actually improved more than those just taught basic time management.
Honestly, I've seen that kind of tech anxiety in my own students. It's only getting tougher to manage, especially coming out of COVID. But wait, you mentioned international students. What did OT look like for them?
Great question. There was a Canadian study, Egan and colleagues, where OT doctoral students coached international students who'd been referred to campus counseling or the international office. They did occupational performance coaching over 3 months. The students showed statistically significant drops in anxiety, depression, and overall distress, plus big jumps in performance and satisfaction on their own goals. It's so cool to see a coaching model, not therapy in the clinical sense, give both mental health and functional results.
That coaching piece really sets it apart. I feel like lots of campuses offer tutoring or generic workshops. But the way these studies track, say, COPM scores before and after, it's not just they felt a bit better, you can see the functional improvements. And these held up months later in some groups, right?
Exactly. In fact, here's a fun detail. Some of the freshmen who did my group interventions on campus reported that the time management strategies, sleep routines, and even budgeting tips stuck with them well after the program ended. There's evidence from follow-up studies that COPM improvement was still there 3 months down the line. It's so encouraging to see that OT doesn't just give a temporary boost. It can help students build skills that last even after they've left the official program.
I love that. And I know there was a study with students on the autism spectrum as well. Most of them ended up applying what they learned in OT long term. So these impacts really aren't just confined to the classroom, or even just neurotypical students.
Right. Whether it's ballroom dancing, time management for tech stress, or group OT for adjustment, the evidence is pretty clear. When you let students identify what matters to them, occupational therapy can help them get there in the classroom, in their routines, in their mental health. It's a totally different angle than what students are used to from traditional campus services.
Okay, so it sounds amazing in the studies, but I want to talk about why this matters, like right now, especially with campuses strained post-pandemic. Let's hit that angle.
Yeah, this is where things get urgent. We're seeing campus counseling services stretch thinner than ever. Mental health concerns among students just keep rising, especially since the pandemic. And yet, the day-to-day challenges that actually derail students, like sleep problems, time management, or just feeling overwhelmed by daily living, aren't always what traditional counseling can address effectively.
You know, I keep flashing back to when my mom had OT after her stroke. I remember thinking it was all these little practical exercises, stuff that just helped her get back to normal life. And I gotta admit, as a dean now, sometimes campus leaders kind of forget that side of student support. We focus so much on the academic and crisis side, but we might be missing the practical life skills gap for students who just feel stuck.
That makes a lot of sense. Occupational therapy can slot into these gaps either by integrating into campus counseling teams, disability services, advising, or as supplemental standalone supports. It gives students a toolkit for both mental health and daily living, whether they're struggling with diagnosable issues or just overwhelmed by the demands of college.
Do you feel like campus administrators underestimate that value? Like if you told someone, we saw 3-point improvement in a satisfaction scale because of ballroom dance plus coaching, would they see that as worth investing in compared to, I don't know, just hiring another counselor?
It's a great question. I think awareness is growing, but yes, there's a lot of catch up to do. Campuses tend to either not know what OT is or they think of OT as extra. It's not essential. But the data shows that OT can give meaningful, measurable, and often lasting enhancement, not just to the counseling caseload, but to overall student life and retention. And remember what we saw last episode, the complex cascading impact of routines, spaces, and participation on mental and academic health. OT is uniquely positioned to bridge medical, counseling, and student success models, practically and preventively.
Makes sense. I mean, I'm just thinking, if I'd known as a student how to manage my time or handle stress better, I probably would have eaten fewer vending machine dinners. But seriously, it's clear this is more than just a bonus service. It could be a game changer, especially with the pressure we're seeing today.
Couldn't agree more, Tim. For everyone listening, if you're a higher ed leader, student, or staff member, maybe it's time to look at OT as an integral part of campus support. There's a real opportunity here to rethink student success and build in services that don't just keep students afloat, but help them thrive.
Honestly, I learned a ton today. So, Dr. K, thanks for walking me and everyone through the evidence. Can't wait to see what we dig into next episode.
Thanks, Tim. Always a pleasure. And thanks to our listeners for joining us again. Be sure to catch us next time on Everyday Academia. Take care, Tim.
Take care, Dr. K. Talk soon, everyone.